So I think most of you know Katya, who wears a number of hats. She, in addition to being an epidemiologist of some renown, she was our information source when going through the pandemic to make sure that we didn't get a lot of misinformation. We understood what was really happening. But she also is the cultural skills coordinator for the lodge, and we've asked her to come and give us an overview of how to go about getting the genealogy cultural skills in which in addition to the pin is maybe secondary for a lot of us, but what it really does is it gives you the opportunity to get things organized in a certain way and to dig a little deeper and find some interesting stories to tell about people in the tree, some of that kind of stuff. So go ahead, Katja.
All right. So those of you who have been to the lodge have probably seen some people who have a pin that looks like this. Can I get a thumbs up if you've seen a pin like this? Okay, so very cool little rose mulling pin. I have taped mine to my name badge just so everything's in one place. There are these different areas that you can investigate at different levels of intensity. So you can see on here, if I can get this to focus, that I have a level 3 pin in genealogy and music. Those are things that, for me, because like many of you, I'd been collecting genealogical records for a long time and I had just not compiled them in one place. I was able to get the paperwork for this done pretty quickly. For level 2, I've done literature. I'm still working on my nonfiction. I tend to read fiction, so I knocked out 2 levels that way. And then down here at level 1, cooking. I made some desserts. No one wanted to eat them, and I thought maybe I should not subject people to other cooking. So if you earn your genealogy pin, you get this very cool rose mulling thing to wear to the lodge. Also, a little pitch here, you can do the sports pins too if you're looking to do bicycling on a stationary bike or an outdoors, walking, and if it's just generic sports, you can earn those as well. So when we talk about pins and levels, what we're trying to do is get people in the lodge to be earning more of these. And it's great to wear this pin to the lodge. Then you've got a conversation starter with other people about what they have learned. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here to show you that this is not as scary as it might sound. So everybody's seeing this screen here for genealogy. There are 14 different things that you could do to earn pins. So there's figure carving, chip carving, dancing, other stuff that I'm not recalling right now because I don't have the list up. So this is not like you have to have done 5 other things. It's just the 5th of those 14 is genealogy. This is the longest instruction packet we could possibly have come up with. And the reason for that is if you notice here in the table of contents, there is a 9-page introduction. And that may seem excessive, but this is designed for people who, unlike you all, are not in a genealogy interest group. So I'm going to try to not make you seasick scrolling through here a little bit. You get a little bit of a history of Norway and when various events happened, like 200 years ago, the Restoration leaving Norway to float to the US. We have, again, some information about naming and the switch from using patronyms, as you can see here, which is your father's name with sen or daughter on the end, to using maybe the name of the farm where you lived. And then a whole bunch of Norwegian words that give you a sense of, if you're looking in old records from census records, church records, Bygdebook records, that you can see what these old words mean. And part of the reason this is important is that some of these spellings have changed over time. And so the spelling, if you would look up modern Norwegian, might not match what you would find in the books from 200 years ago. And then a lot of words about things pertaining to being married, being a child, being baptized, moving. So different relationships that you might see in a census or a church book are listed here. Again, a lot of those, some measurements that are so old-fashioned that few Norwegians today, I think, would be able to interpret some of them. And then some information about geography, which again, many of you would already be familiar with, but we can't trust that other people would. And then finally, a list of the kinds of information that you could get out of church records, many of which, as you know, are scanned and searchable online now. And then information about emigration records and census records. So all of that kind of overwhelming, but it's not really relevant. It's just a resource. So then in the packet, we get down to business on page 10. And again, for everybody in GIG, this will be something that you've probably already done for yourself. So there is an ancestor chart, which is just a family tree. And you don't have to use the one in this packet. If you have a different family tree that you prefer to use, absolutely fine. So something that looks like that would be what you would use as you start your genealogy paperwork for earning one of those pins. And then they also provide what they call a family group sheet, which is the place where you could record not just the direct ancestors like your parents, your grandparents, but all of those people's offspring. So you're recording who your aunts and uncles, your great aunts and great uncles would be. And they encourage people to keep a source list, which is where you can, for example, if you find your ancestor in an online record through the digital archive from Norway that's online, that you just copy the website for that exact page and save it somewhere so that you can go back later and find that exact source in the exact place online. And the reason that can be important is because those records are often updated. So some of them may have had misspellings, and the automated process that's creating and cleaning those data sets may clean it up later. And so checking back may give you more information 2 years later than you had now. They're also getting better about linking records. So right now, you might not be able to click on somebody's name in the digital archive and have it open up all of their records. But as that's getting cleaned up, more records are getting linked. So saving those sources makes it easier to do future research. So the way you earn each of these levels of pins is first, you add a few entries to your family tree, and you fill in what you know: names, birth dates, death dates, locations. You add some of those family group sheets, those who were the offspring or the siblings, not just the direct ancestors. You document your sources. You tell a story about somebody. This can be simple, just a paragraph. I did this for some of my great grandparents, where I scanned an old family photo and was able to interview older relatives about that person and write up just a one-page biography with a photo that now I have to pass on to the next generation. So the story doesn't have to be a book. It's really just giving a little bit of a life story and a photo if you have one. And then the only so-called tricky part would be this elective learning activity. And the idea here is that Sons of Norway wants you to be getting connected with the lodge as you do these activities. This isn't about sitting by yourself and just doing homework. So the kinds of learning activities that count: if you're active in this group in GIG, if you've come to 3 meetings online in the past year, good enough. That's all you need to do for one of your 3 pins as your learning activity that's extra. You could also do things like help somebody else in the lodge with translating some of their family records or help them with their searches. That counts as your learning activity. So it's basically anything that lets you engage with other people. If you make a presentation to Gig, that definitely counts as your activity that would be supplemental to what you do. So when you've done that, all you do then, it used to be that you had to email me as the cultural skills administrator for the lodge, and I had to send your stuff to Sons of Norway headquarters, and we had to wait a few months for them to say it was okay. We no longer have to do that. Sons of Norway headquarters said that lodge administrators get to be the people who sign off on you earning your PIN. So you just tell me your name and send me an email. So I have your email address. Let me know if you already have that Rosemalling PIN. So if you've had any other PINs so that I know which hardware you need. And I'll take a quick look at it. And that's it. At the next lodge meeting, you'll be able to get that you attend, you'll be able to get your PIN and the bars, whether it's a level 1, 2, 3 bar or a genealogy PIN. So that's it. A lot of this stuff here you can just completely ignore. You you can work directly with me if we need to hop on Zoom just for a quick look through your materials. That's all we have to do. So level 1 PIN is doing something like 4 people on your family tree. And level 2 is doing like an extra 6, and level 3 is doing like another 4. So you get back to your great grandparents on at least one side doing this. And I know that many of you have already done a whole lot more than that. So this is not meant to be something that is hundreds of hours of work. This is meant to be a good excuse to compile your family tree. Or if you've already done that, it's a good excuse to get some pretty jewelry to wear to the lodge just to have. And it also then signals to other people that you are a genealogist. And so we want is to have a lot of people who are part of the lodge, who if people are working on their family trees and maybe aren't part of Gig yet, that they'll see what you've got on your pin and say, I've really been trying to track down where my great grandma came from. Do you know resources that could help me with that? So it's meant to be a bit of a conversation starter. And again, just purely fun. If it's not fun, you're doing it wrong. So let me know and we'll figure out a way to make it a little less work so that it'll be fun for you. So who here has earned a genealogy pin from the lodge or any Sons of Norway? Several of you. Who is interested in maybe doing this? You. So we would like to set a target of some number of pins. So if people do all 3 levels, and if you've already done a lot of research, you can knock those out in a day. We'd like to get a number of pins, whether it's 3 for some people, 1 for some other people by the end of 2025. I am not going to propose the number at this time. I'm going to leave that to Joel to propose or to poll you on. But we'd really like, as part of engaging with the lodge, for people who are members to try one of the cultural skills pins in 2025. If you've already done one in the past, try something new. If you haven't done it at all, try it for the first time. So any questions about that?
I'm not really interested in pins, but I'm very impressed with your document. And even though I've done all my research and got my books already printed years ago, I wondered if I could get a copy of that document just to review it.
Yeah, absolutely. If anybody here, if you want to just put in chat your email, I will send that to you in 2 minutes.
Oh, wonderful.
It's on the Sons of Norway website, although that website's a little
That website is so hard to navigate that it's probably easier if I email it to you. And Joel also has a copy that he can email out to everybody. Or would that be the easiest thing, Joel, that you just send this to the entire mailing list after,
Sure.
after the meeting? That way people who work here get it as well.
Especially if he announces the challenge at the same
Yes.
time.
I don't mind stuffing other people's inboxes, so.
Good.
Well, if it's helpful for me to send, fill it out and send it to you, I can do that.
Yeah, I think it
years
just
ago.
generates excitement. So a few years ago, the Reading Circle did a Reading Circle challenge, and they knocked out like 25 levels of pins in a year from that group. And I'm not saying we have to beat them. You know, it's not a competition, but I'd like to at least match them, you know, just to show that we're cool too. Again, I'll let Joel decide what the challenge is, but yes, just it does build excitement, I think, within the lodge to have people see that this group is active.
Yeah. The other question I have is, how do you pronounce your name?
In America, it would be Katha Jacobsen. In Norway, it's Katha Jacobsen.
I think, Katya, it would also be a way for people to try and figure out if they're interrelated within the lodge. I know it sounds far-fetched, but I have to tell you, in my Swedish group, I have made at least in-law contacts. So
yes, well,
it can happen.
Yeah, absolutely. So we have that series in the newsletter, right, where people are writing up their stories a little bit. I think some connections have been made that way. And this process certainly feeds into greater awareness so we can find those cross linkages.
Yeah, that's one of the things we've talked about, wanting to find ways of making some of those connections happen, helping people find connections within our group and obviously with other groups. Just when we were throwing this around, the number 25 and 2025 it has sort of a ring to it. That's pretty aspirational, I think, but
At minimum, we can do, and we'll count anything that comes in the end of 2024 as a 2025 one for that challenge. At minimum, I think we should be able to get 10 levels of pins. Technically, that would only need 4 people to participate, but 25 is certainly an ambitious one. We can keep track, and every month I can let Joel know how we're doing on getting progress, and we'll see where things go. But yeah, I'd like to make 2025 an active year for genealogy pins, just as a way of invigorating the lodge as a whole.
thank you very much, Katya. I think the next thing on our agenda is that we've prepared a brief sort of review of the last 5 years. We've kind of taken as a starting point when we reinvigorated the gig in 2020 or so. And as part of that, largely because of Alexis, we have a very nice new website that we wanted to show you. So maybe should I start with the PowerPoint, Alexis?
That's a good intro. Sure.
Okay, so I'm gonna let me get where I can do something here. So I'm gonna share my screen. And I think this is the one. And so can you see this?
Can you make it full screen?
There, how does that look?
Good.
Yeah. You've got 2 pages showing at once.
Yeah, I think that's well, I think it's the software.
You could make it, yeah, I'm not sure. Yeah, there you go.
So it's new software to me, so it's going to give us all the little...
It's working well.
Yeah, fine. So as background, over the winter, we had been contacted after offering to give an update on the gig's activities, thinking that we had done a lot of useful work. And so we prepared a presentation for the board, which got delayed from winter to spring. And so in thinking about this meeting for the gig and how to engage and let everyone realize how much work has gone on and what our level of participation is, this PowerPoint should give you a sense of what's been happening. The next slide, Joel. Next slide. Yeah, there you go. So just to bring everybody back to the same foundation, it's a forum for members to share common interests. It's absolutely to learn about genealogy and where to go to get things and what the sources are. And as a part of that, to become more cognizant of the cultural history and what was happening in the country when our ancestors were living there. And it gives the color and the flavor of their lives and gives us a better understanding of what they were going through, good and bad. Next slide. So this is something that's been of great interest to Joel and myself, which was to track who are internal presenters. And so we've got a list, and it's organized chronologically by meeting and year, and it gives you the name of the gig member and the general topic that was presented. So you can see we've got quite a variety of presenters and subject matter. And in 2003 and 2004, we had 2 meetings where we had multiple members contributing different topics.
You see that Donna will recognize the name Janet Johnson. This was our first Zoom meeting, and Janet is the leader for the Swedish group, and presented a really interesting story about her immigrating ancestor. Unfortunately, at that point, I was not smart enough to record, so we don't have that that presentation recorded.
Yeah, we do meet once a month, her group. People can join if they're interested in any kind of Swedish genealogy. We work together on the records to solve people's questions. I'm going to have to leave right now because I have a conflict. I'm going back to my Swedish Zoom, which is research in other Nordic countries, including Norway. So I will see you all later.
Nice to see you.
Thank you. Great presentation. I love it. Your guys are doing such good work. It's very impressive.
Thank you.
For gig members who are interested in seeing the presentations of their fellow members there on the archive, that's part of our new expanded website. And so what we've done is actually over a year ago, Joel, I think you mentioned that Bill DeRoche had sort of made a suggestion, gee, the various groups under the lodge should evaluate their presence on the website and see if they wanted to, improve it. And Joel and I talked about that. And I thought, well, what the heck, I'll look at it because I hadn't paid much attention. And as a consequence, what we have now are a lot of different topic areas. This gives the basic tab headings, with one exception. The meeting calendar is related to 2 other places. But we've got a lot of information, links, discussion, concepts to think about. And we will show that subsequent to this presentation. Next slide. So here, for just perspective's sake, is a little table that tells you how many meetings a year were held from 2020 to 24, the number of presenters that were external and then internal, and then of that total number of meetings, there was a set of about 5 at the very beginning, which were group discussions, really getting a handle on how the gig wished to function and where their interests lie. So you can see we've had a lot of meetings, a lot of presenters, internal and external. And we hope that we even more internal presenters.
The one of our limitations is, since we try to meet on the 4th Thursday, when we get to November and December, you start running into Thanksgiving and Christmas. So we've decided to just normally not meet in November or December, so we don't conflict with holidays and also with the Lodge Christmas festival.
And the last is just an opportunity to have any comments, but this directly ties the comment on the white bar is we're going to be talking later in this meeting about getting your ideas and suggestions for the content of the suite of meetings for 2025, and also to get volunteers to help pull this all together.
So I'm gonna close this and how about if we take a look at the website? Does that work?
Yeah, yeah.
And it's really pretty easy to get there. You can go to the Lodge website, which is in pretty good shape, and scroll down, and there's a place where you can link to the genealogy section.
And so on this page, we have some referral remarks. Like if you want to look at the next meeting announcement, it tells you to go to the gig calendar tab. If you want to check on other pending lectures, go there as well. And then it also will directs you to the archive tab if you want to look at past presentations. And then it reminds people, if you click on the down arrow, Joel, at the bottom, for the support group, that we set up an opportunity for members to say, I need some assistance. I can't solve this problem. And for those, we've had one member ask for assistance, and we had a very detailed presentation on their efforts in data collection and where they couldn't resolve finding the next person, and members made their own suggestions to them about how to solve this quandary. And so this is set up to prompt you when you come to the website, if indeed you're struggling on a particular person or family, that this is an opportunity for you to take advantage of. And then I think we'll just start with the calendar and go across the tabs. Yeah. So this is talking about today's meeting, which is the last meeting in 2024. Then we have one meeting set up for January 2025, and that's Katya and I talking about the plague, the Black Death, the second pandemic from two different perspectives. And this is all that we know of at the moment for 2025. Once we get the program set, there will be a sequence of February, March, April, May, June, etc. that will be here on this page. Now, this is a lot of information embedded in these down arrows. So let's just start. This gives even newbies or people who have been dabbling in genealogy but aren't really sure about some of the vocabulary and what it entails. It's a good starting point of reference, presents some vocabulary, some perspective on how it's not only family history, but you're looking at historical records, sometimes historical events that an ancestor got involved in or was active in or led in. So it's not simply looking at vital records. And then we go for beginners. It gets you to start thinking about, okay, look at your own family. Where did they live? What jobs did your parents have? What about your siblings, close aunt and uncles? And this gets you thinking about the information you need for the genealogy pin and cultural skills. For intermediate and advanced users, I've got in here a lot of sources with live links that are a good compilation of places to go to get information. And if you like one of these links, then you can save that to your own computer as a frequently visited site. It also suggests, depending on your level of interest and activity, that there are local genealogical societies, professional groups that you might learn from that have sometimes monthly meetings, definitely annual meetings with presenters. And we're lucky in this area because the National Genealogical Society is headquartered in Arlington. So there are a lot of highly skilled genealogists in the DC metro area. And it mentions places to go to get education, see webinars, etc. Yep. And then here's one of my bugaboos, which Joel tolerates, I think. I'm like, for I guess the science perspective, I got to check that my sources are leading me accurately and precisely as best I can. And this is a little bit towards that direction, understanding the type of evidence you've got and how far you've gone to be rigorous in your proof. And you'll recall we had Rebecca Kofert speak this past summer, and she was getting at this issue of the standards for genealogical proof. We have, I think, these 3 books in the Lodge Library. Is that correct, Joel?
Yes, they're all there.
Yeah, so Joel was good enough. I think you bought each of them for the Lodge. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And yep. And then here's Genealogy Cultural Skills, which we just talked about. So if you need a quick refresh, it's here on the website.
And I think that link actually takes you to the PDF that Katja was showing, but I'll definitely
It's supposed to. Yeah, it's supposed to. And then online family tree and information storage programs. Many of us started out collecting, little groups of paper, and you start with, this family's over here. My grandparents are, perpendicular, and this stack is 3 inches, and this one's a half. And then you start going vertical, and then you've got file folders. A lot of people have, in the past 20 years, let's say, gone online and used a variety of programs to store, sort, and evaluate their family history. And so this just gives you a sense of some of the main players. It's not the be all and end all. There are links that describe different types of software, tools, services. Yeah. Oh yeah, and this is a just in case. We had this link, I think, on the earlier version of the website. It's like a long list of best ofs. And for those of you who have trouble figuring out, okay, the person over here might have been the wife of the second cousin of my 3rd grade aunt. How am I related to them? Well, this is one of those charts that lets you try and track the interrelationships between you and a particular person or between 2 other people. And the last thing has to do with the different Norwegian alphabet and the letters you might need to borrow. Key records. So this was split into 3 things because a lot of us are starting in the US. We have access to English records in the US. There are some key national and state regional databases to use to begin this process. In the earlier part of the 1900s, the 1800s, etc. And we have the Library of Congress near us. We have state archives, we have state historical societies, and even Find a Grave, which gives you access to some things. And from Norway, there's a couple key places I think most of you are aware of. The Digital Archive, the Arkivverk, the National Library, and then sometimes within each county, there are historiologues. Sometimes within very active municipalities, there are historiologues. And there are even historiologues or genealogical societies for traditional districts. So depending on where you're looking, there's a variety of information out there. And this gives you sort of a high-level swath of the types of information that could be the types of sources that you could go to find your genealogical information. Yeah, and this is just some qualitative remarks to make people remember. There could be biographies of individuals or groups. There could be what I'd call surname-specific books, which cover multiple generations of a particular family, and they are often available online. And then nonfiction books on regional history can even cover particular ancestors. And in fact, I'll just mention one thing. Katya, I am working for January. I bought this book to go through it, and I found 3 of my ancestors discussed in this book. Unbelievable.
That's either a wonderful thing or they died horribly from plague, and it's a horrible thing, depending on how you look at this.
Yeah, yeah. But anyway, so don't forget, nonfiction books can have unexpected benefits, so don't rule them out. Oh yeah, genetic genealogy. This is very technical. It has these 3 main headings. It's essentially some concepts and very high level information with links to take you so you can drill down and become more educated. For those that have heard some of our presentations on genetic genealogy, they're often very high level. We had one this past summer, and it was supposed to be like a 20-minute presentation with time for gig member questions, and it turned into be just about a 2-hour, very detailed presentation. So don't get discouraged if you go down the track of genetic genealogy. There are a lot of sources of information to assist you. And it talks about what is actually being analyzed. You know, what are the units and what do you use those for, or what do the professionals use them for? And so this one is just a short thing. And then the next down, yes, thank you, Joel, is tools. And the triangulation technique, which you will probably have heard of, how to look at your centimorgans. You know, the classic heading I like is, I have the results, now what? And I imagine, you know, someone staring at a single piece of paper, bug-eyed, going, well, I don't know what this means. Well, these sites are to help you. Okay. And the next heading is the Lodge Library. And we've got a couple really good standard documents on genealogical proof, on explaining your evidence. So don't forget about those. And then, as luck would have it, we got our long-awaited file from Carolyn, which lists their holdings of genealogical material by category, and she's defined these in that subheading, like GE-B, GE-V, and you can go down, the list isn't too long, and you might find a big book in the valley of particular interest to you. You might find family history with the surname you're interested in. So check that out. And then the last thing is the long-awaited, highly desired Gig Archive. Yay! This has been a labor of dedication. And what you see now in front of you is a table going chronologically back in time. So if you were to look there, you would see the most recent meeting, or most recent year, and then in order by month of the meetings that we have had. And then the links and the topics are off to the side. So for all the recordings where we could record a presentation, those YouTube links are there. Sometimes we did not get permission to record, but we were given a PowerPoint in PDF form, or sometimes we got a handout, like we just got from Liv Moret Hawkenstad, and whatever we have is placed in the archive within relatively short order after a meeting.
Could I just say that my name is misspelled?
We apologize for that.
It's a Z, not an S in Mackenzie.
We will definitely fix that.
Thanks.
With sharp eyes like that, we need you to be our web mistress. Anyway, so this is the status of our archive. We have gone back as far as we can. Joel mentioned that the initial meetings were not recorded, and there is no link there, but we do know the broad topic that was discussed. And some of you may have notes taken. So if you get to that, then we could pursue it. Yeah. So this is what the gig website looks like now. It is probably 2 orders of magnitude more complicated and more in depth than the previous version. And yes, Sydney, if you're going into Norwegian records, you're going to have to figure out how to start reading Norwegian, and that's an issue for all of us.
But there are also resources within the group. I'm one of several people who is willing to help you with translation. This is Katya, by the way, if that's something that you need help with.
All right, so Sydney,
That would
Katya.
be very helpful. Yeah.
So we're definitely open to suggestions, both in terms of other kinds of information that you think would be helpful, as well as valuable links for these different categories of information that we have. One of the things that happens with a website like this is that we have a lot of links, and some of the links will over time will go bad. So we need help from all of you. If you find a bad link, let us know, and we'll figure out how to fix it, find the right information, or just delete it from the website. So we wanted to move along to basically 2 other topics. One is we're looking for people that can give us a hand with with some of this. And we're not asking for a major time commitment, but just somebody who can kind of help keep us on track. So for example, if you just help us make sure that the calendar is up to date, that it reflects the upcoming meetings that have been announced in the Viking or other places. One of the things that we definitely want to try to encourage everyone to present some of their family information. Several of you have done that, but I think we can ask you to come back and do a little bit more if you're interested. But one thing that I'd really like to suggest, I mean, right now, our topics are basically determined by Alexis and me, and I will say that most of my suggestions are people that I would like to hear from, which may or may not be of interest to a lot of other people. So we need to put together a group that will meet maybe 2 or 3 times a year on Zoom, brief meeting to discuss potential topics and I think we'd like to have this be people with a range of experience. So if you're early in the process of putting together the family tree, that would be very helpful. You can help us identify people who would be good to help direct your research to specific places. So I think the last, and this is a short list, but we're definitely interested in the kinds of topics that you find interesting that you want us to do. Before the meeting started, Jeff was talking about more what I call sort of nuts and bolts presentations on how to find things in the U.S. Census or how to find things in the digital archive. We've done a fair amount of that, and if you look in the archive, you'll find some pretty good recordings of information like that. But it's definitely something that we want to try to keep doing. One of the things that was suggested, and I know some of you probably have have attended or logged into Roots Tech, and so somebody could give us a summary of what that's like and what kinds of things you learned and so forth. That would help the rest of us for future work on this. We have an offer from
Family Tree Maker.
Family Tree Maker, which I thought I had set up here.
If you want, I can talk to the 5 options we were given.
Okay, yeah, I must
Okay.
have
Well,
misplaced it.
Joel and I both use Family Tree Maker as a defensive backup for our family trees. And Family Tree Maker just sent out a notice that they were making a huge upgrade and an announcement along with that, asking if there were people who wanted any presentations on the Family Tree Maker software. And since Joel and I had just been thinking about 2025 program planning, I thought, well, I'll fill out their form and see what happens. Well, they have offered we could have a presentation that didn't say we couldn't have more than one, but there are 7 options. One is a basic introduction to Family Tree Maker for those who have not used it before. And then there's a section called Don't Be Afraid to Click, which is a session for people who are currently using Family Tree Maker, looking to improve their skills. Third option is what's new. So that would be what's coming in the 2024 upgrade, talking about the latest features, enhancements, address questions. They have something called sneak peek, which sounds like it's exactly what's new. And so I can't really distinguish those. The next one is Family Tree Maker updates. And that's for people who want to keep their Family Tree Maker 2019 version and upgrade it, not buying 2024 de novo. Then there's a family book creator, and they have an amazing partner book creation software. I don't know how that works, but if we decided to avail ourselves of that presentation option, we should hopefully learn. And then they have an option, this is the last and seventh one, called User Group Update Class. And this would be, they say, a bit of all the above 6 with a Q&A demo section. And it seems to me it's more tailored to a true genealogical society, I think, but it's not clear yet. We could make inquiries to see if any of these generate interest on the behalf of the gig members. So this is something that we just heard about from Family Tree Maker.
I use Family Tree Maker primarily because of their connection to Ancestry, and I don't trust Ancestry. I had kind of when they upgraded their software, I lost a bunch of records and they got kind of jumbled. So I use Family Tree Maker as a backup. But there are other software vendors as well, and so depending upon what kinds of what software people are using, we could try to reach out to the different companies and see if they would come and help us make presentations. Well, so there are a lot of there's a lot of information out there. The information is becoming much more accessible, and I think that the software is becoming better. So, like for the charts that Katya talked about, Ancestry is not very good at that, but Family Tree Maker will do exactly those charts that she's looking for. But there's other good software too. So I'm really interested in hearing suggestions about who we should be trying to reach out to.
Yeah, and from my perspective, I've seen Sydney's remark in the chat that she's interested. Are others that are on the call today users of Family Tree Maker and or interested in learning? Just
I used Family Tree Maker, but that was 30 years ago.
I have Family Tree Maker 2019. I'd be interested in the programs on the 2024 version, or taking the 2019 and upgrading it.
Okay.
And I'm curious, Rhoda, what did you switch to, or did you?
Oh, no, I didn't switch to anything. I used the Family Tree Maker and wrote up my family history, about 20 years ago. So I haven't.
Yeah, Rhoda has actually one of the interesting presentations in our archive. You can go, as she pointed out, we misspelled her name, but we'll get that fixed. And you can actually go in and listen to her presentation on that.
Yeah, the one thing that I have wondered about, I did contact a genealogist in Norway to do some of my research, and she traced one of my mother's parents back 7 more generations for me from their local Big book. But my father had one ancestor that I was curious about and couldn't get accurate information on. I wondered if where I could get a genealogist to research that one great-grandmother who seemed to be adopted and then had a lot of talent. She was a poet. She was considered an outstanding person, but I couldn't figure out exactly who she was. I have the name of her father, but when I looked up that name, There were about 5 people with similar names to that, so it was hard to know how to trace her. I couldn't find a name of her mother. The man I found had a family of many other children, but didn't list this one.
There are definitely people able to do that kind of research around. We've had a couple of them give us presentations. And we can go back to them, or we can look for more of that kind of
Yeah, I think a lot of the meetings focus on people doing their own research, but sometimes, you know, it's worth paying someone to do research on someone that's hard to trace.
So towards that end, is it select of data that would have a list of genealogists working in Norway for hire?
Huh? I don't know if there is such a list. Tona, do you know?
I found mine by accident. I was just looking up the locality where my mother's father had come from, and found a photographer who had done beautiful photography. This is way up, you know, north of the Arctic Circle on the coast, Vesterålen, and and then he had many links to much of the information like you have shown us, and today, in links to information about naming and all sorts of things about Norway. And one of them was a link to a genealogist. It turned out to be his wife. So I sent her an email, and I told her the name of my grandfather, the English version of John Martinson, and said he was. And she wrote back, and she said, "Oh yes, I know who your grandfather was. He was married to." She had the name of my grandmother, who was born in Iowa. And so in Norway, they had information about their American relatives. And so she went to the big book and she traced the family back many more generations.
That's really good. I think one of the things we see a lot in the bigger books and other things like that is you give a person's name and then it says they went to America. That's all that you find.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Joel?
Yes.
Yeah, there is a Norwegian page called Slektsforum, a page under the Norwegian Genealogical Society, and if you go to that page and ask a question, they try to help you for free. It's kind of common. They have the same interest, so they help people. Slektsforum.
Yeah, definitely. That's the select data.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you. That's really helpful. Yeah, I just saw an email this morning from them, which I haven't had a chance to look at yet, but there's a little video in it where they're explaining some new system they have for finding sources. So I'll look at it. If it looks like it's useful, we can add that to the website or send it out to people. Okay, so what I think I'll do with working with Alexis is to put together some of these things and send it out to our full mailing list and ask people to respond and give us suggestions and perhaps, well, I don't know how specific I want to get about asking the question, is there a list of Norwegian genealogists? But somehow we'll try to work on that. Okay, other suggestions?
No, but I've got a query for the group that's here. Do any of you have a reaction, positive or negative, to the list of volunteer opportunities and subject matter categories for the 2025 program?
we'll send those out again, and please look and think about it. Especially, I mean, I think that if we can get just a handful of people who want to meet on, not as a big time sink, but on a semi-regular basis, and propose topics for meetings, help us find people that would be good. And we'll meet on Zoom, of course, so we can maybe twist Tona's arm to be on there too. It turns out that meeting today, we're competing with a big NAHA, Norwegian American Historical Association meeting, which is going on all day today in what is it, Northfield or Minnesota.
Madison.
So that's where some people are, and hopefully we'll get a report from them about what they heard. Okay, well, thank you all for attending this meeting, and think about these questions. How can you give us an hour a month to help make sure that we keep this website in good shape? Maybe 3 hours a year to help us make sure we get good programs, and that kind of thing.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you guys very
Thank you very
much.
much, Joel and Alexis.
Oh, thank you all. I'm gonna hit the big red button here. Yeah, there's this thing in human factors. Apparently, in early versions of defibrillators, there was this big red button and people made the mistake of thinking that it was the button to deliver the shock, but it was really the button to turn the machine off. So they'd hit that button, turn it off, and then it would take 10 minutes to get it charged back.
A design flaw.
That's what, yeah.
All right. Talk to you later. Bye, everybody.
Bye.